And we are back. Much more coming up in terms of the future plans and what the Father Yahweh has in mind for us in the earth. It's very exciting, very interesting, because it gives us every step of the way more excitement to learn and to love the Torah and to love every word He spoke and being obedient to what He said. And there is the fact of many people are asking, so what would be then the next step? We understand precisely what Yahshua said in the 23rd chapter of Metityahu, and he was a Hebrew from the Hebrew line. He was a Shaliach, and we understand he was with Yahshua, and he is from the original line, and there is lots of trust in his writings. But then the 23rd chapter of Metityahu, from the first through the third verses, and then it states, Yahshua then spoke with the crowds and with his disciples. Disciples means the disciplined ones. And then he said to them, the scribes and the people of the law, the Pharisees, sit on Moses' seat. And we understand Moses' seat was a stone seat, symbolizing Moses and the law. Therefore, whatsoever Moses said, that observe and do. What Moses said to be done, do and observe. But do not observe the takanot ma'asim of them, for they say they do observe, but they truly do not do what Moses said to do. So we understand that Yahshua founded the city mixed up, and they shouldn't have. And then goes on. Takanot means man-made laws that changes biblical law. It's very bad. That's why Yahshua was trying to make sure, and he was cleaning up the city. Ma'asim, acts of the rabbis that serves as a legal precedent for legal behavior, is also bad. And then do what Moses said to do. Do not do what the Takanot Ma'asim states. And then no person has the authority to include or exclude from the Torah given by Moses, and it came from the Creator. So then Yahweh Yeshua said, myself have not come to include or exclude from the Torah or the prophets. And this is what the word destroy means, but to complete them. So then many people are asking, what would be then the next step? It's very simple. There are lots of Hebrew brothers around the world, and they own a lot of land. So what would be the logic, knowing that we are behind schedule a couple thousand years at least? Would set up perimeters in the land, and then making sure the tabernacle would be re-established, the services of the priest is re-established as it was before, the Ark of the Covenant built with gold as per specification, and we have the layout of what is like the Ark of the Covenant. They should do as per description of Moses, and these around the world. So then the Goys, they have a place to go. They go and they wait at the gate. This is the objective. Because we are behind schedule, we don't have any more time to ask heaven, what should we do? It was given what to do. So this is the next step. Very plain and simple. But it requires a stand of what was taught. And the only hindrance is our inability to understand what was told. The Creator was very specific. We have work to do. We are behind schedule a couple thousand years. Come on, you got work to do. So then some people, oh boy, but aren't you going far enough with this? Is that true? That should be rebuilt? It was never obsoleted. The only portion that was completed was simply the sacrifices of animals. The rest remains as it was. And then what would be the part of the Goys then? The Goys are the servants of the camp. That's the purpose of the guys. Those outside of the camp, those are doing the work for the camp. They are working the land. Make sure the camp, they are served with water, they are served with provisions, they are served what is required to teach another group. This is what Yahshua taught. They would go around the world establishing holy lands. And then at least the guys waiting, they can wait at the gate because they are going to get their share. During the time, then they work the land for them. They learn how to be servants. And this is what the guys were. The understanding of, let's say for instance, retracting back a bit, regarding Leviticus 23rd chapter, 22nd verse. It was very strange for having the 22nd verse in the midst of a very couple of important sects of holy mikras. And the Megillah of Ruth is the entire 22nd verse of the 23rd chapter of Leviticus. It explains being from the outside in the land of Israel and eating the corners of the field. This is what it means. So then the guys, their part from the outside of the mainstream would be doing the work for them. This is what they were there for. They would work together. The people in the camp, they do the training. They are training other groups to form another holy land. This means that the 70 elders that Moses prayed over and the anointing was then divided amongst them, and then there were leaders of certain numbers and then leaders of the other certain numbers. Those should be in place as per Moses' instructions. And then of course Moses had listened to these, what's his name was, Jethro was a very important person in his life, and he came up with the idea of having his anointing from on high divided amongst the 70 elders. Those should be in place. Each camp should have 70 elders as per Moses' instructions. And then Yahshua's words, Yahweh Yeshua, would be valid. 23rd chapter of Mitzvah. Whatsoever Moses said for you to do, these do and observe. So what's the next step? Let's start praying for our dear Hebrew brothers around the world to begin to establish perimeters and do what Moses said for them to do. And then the guys, they wait outside. They do the work for them outside. And those Hebrew brothers that are involved with the world's trade would entrust their guys' friends, faithful friends, to do the work for them, while they themselves, coming from the mainstream, would devote themselves to the work of Ruach HaKodesh. It's very obvious. There is not a moment of wasting. And the time is going, and we are a couple thousand years behind schedule. Because the world is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. The economy is going down, 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 and down. Some countries are experiencing some sort of economical growth, but the morality is far above the growth of the economy. So there is always a law of compensation. It counterbalances itself to the point of destruction, because they do not have the instructions. There is no shalom apart from the instructions. And then what goes up in terms of the economy goes down in terms of morality. And then they defeat itself, or they defeat themselves. Because the moral problem defeats the other side of the growth. It's always like this. Our country, for instance, the United States, experienced a huge amount of growth, but then the morality destroyed it. There is always a law of compensation. So then what the world is expecting is instructions from heaven. It only comes as Moses is taught. It doesn't come any other way. So then there is not a moment of wasting. Set up perimeters, set up the tents, set up the tabernacle, set up the 70 elders as they were before, the Levites, and so on and so forth. So then when the guys from the outside, they are drawn, and this is what Yahshua taught. Only those that the Father draws from the outside, bring them into the camp. And that's why Yahshua was trying to clean up the city first. Only those that the Father draws from the outside, place them in a camp, place them in a city. But the city had to be closed. This is the proper analogy. It doesn't say that the people of the Goys would be saved. No. The Goys, they are saved outside because they are doing the work for the camp. That's a given. But then further training are only for those who are drawn from the outside, placed in a camp. And this is precisely what the Bibles out there, the regular Bibles, they don't teach. They mix them. And they were never mixed. So then the context begin to come into place. And then the functions. And obviously each camp then around the world, as per the design of Moses that he brought from the mountain, came from on high, came from heaven. The layout and what they should be doing, precisely as per plan. And then the guys, they wait outside. They are saved. And they do the work for them in the land. Until they are drawn from the outside into the camp to form another group. It's not complicated. In fact, very simple. And people must act in loyalty to the instructions. And the guys must be patient. They must wait. Must have a lot of paciencia and wait outside of the camp. However, they have the copy of the words of Yahshua. And that's more than enough for the moment. There are higher services that must be re-established. And those are related with the times of Moses. And then the city of Jerusalem must be clean. Because then when the camps around the world, they are set as per the instructions of Moses, they came from on high, then the people outside are going to start to prosper. And this is when the world is going to have some sort of a stabilization. They're going to start prospering. It's not for the people of the camp to get involved with them anymore. Let them do their own. Because the main point is staying away from the world's system and remaining holy as per instructions. And then they would ask, it worked. What is going to be like the kingdom to come? The answer is simple. Go to Jerusalem. That's what the kingdom to come would be like. And then, of course, there is a whole lot more to come. But this is the first step. There is not a second of waiting and not a second of wasting, because those plans, they were already given. The Creator is not going to give another word from heaven until this gets done first. These are very obvious. And then we can speak a bit regarding the revelation, and we understand that Yohanan, the disciple, he was not in the island of Patmos when he wrote Revelation. It was concocted. Patmos was similar of Alcatraz. He was in, quote, in Alcatraz. There was no special Megillah delivery for Yohanan. he wrote before he went to the island. How would the church cities of the main anchoring place from where vengeance is to come would receive the Megillas from Alcatraz? Was there a special boat for Yohanan, Megillah delivery from Yohanan? And then they would get in the boat and then would deliver Megillas from a tyrant that was ruling over the world during that time and was executing lots of our Hebrew brothers that gave their lives in service of the gospel, of the relink, of the saving of the people of the world, not the world, because the world is condemned. And then would these crazy people trying to be in charge would let a shaliach, very influential, exercised, functioned, a disciple of the very Mashiach, would they let him do Megillah delivery? It's insane. He was in prison. He was in Alcatraz, so to speak, and there was no Megillah delivery. He was before. Then the Megillas, they were delivered, and then each of those city churches, then they received words from heaven. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Came from the, in quote, the camp. Because the main stream of the Hebrews from the Hebrew line would be in a camp. And then, of course, explains what takes place then the first, second, and third chapters of Revelation. He was not on the island. He was before. And sets the stage from where vengeance would come from. And we understand those are the main seven churches, seven spirits of the Creator, and then there are seven angels, and then seals. Those are matching. So people, okay, those were the anchoring cities then, huh? And they are the anchoring cities, and they should be the anchoring cities, and they must be put in place as they were before. So then the vengeance can come and get this age closed. And we can be much more geared up, because there is not a moment of wasting. Truly, there is only a time of picking up the telephone and set up those perimeters and go from there. And be excited, because Ruach HaKodesh is ready for the work. Yahshua is ready for the work. You only depend upon the mainstream people to get to work. And there is no other words from heaven. But much more is coming up. Stay tuned.